quick.
So welcome back, everybody. This is Night Flight. And today, of course, Jill Mattson is back. I'm smiling so much because we had so much trouble. First, I couldn't hear her. Then all of a sudden, she couldn't hear me. And then I was sitting in front of the camera, but only the background photo was visible. So we had quite an adventure to make this happen. But here we are, and we are going to talk about DNA activation, what that actually is. And so, yeah, welcome, welcome, Jill.
Thank you. As always, I'm always happy and excited to share new ideas and different ways to approach our world, making us more masters of ourselves, I suppose.
Mm-hmm. So I would like to start with a very, very unfortunate term, and that is junk DNA.
Okay.
Yeah. So first of all, nature doesn't really do junk. Yeah.
I know science calls it junk. My interpretation is they don't understand it yet.
Mm-hmm.
That's where
Exactly.
I come from.
Yeah, what they say is the correct term would be non-coding DNA. In other words, it doesn't code proteins. So, okay. But still, the term junk DNA is so unfortunate because whether we like it or not, it has this undertone of garbage, useless. You know what I mean?
I
So
agree.
why scientists would do that, that's I find that a little bit strange. Yeah. And in terms of garbage, I mean, nature is perfect. The banana peel will go back to soil. The same with any peel. If an animal dies, you have the vultures, you have hyenas. So there's always a cleaning up crew coming in. So that goes really against my personal experience or what I can observe. So yeah, I thought, no, that's a very unfortunate word.
I agree. I
Mm,
agree.
yeah. So and the funny thing is, they say, depending on whom you listen to, they say that 95 to 98% is junk DNA.
Correct.
Yeah. So,
Correct.
and there I have the next problem because yeah, the ratio appears to be completely unbalanced. You know, I could live with 50-50, or I could live even maybe 60.
Here's a thought,
Yeah.
just a thought, certainly nothing proven. But think of the dot as the first dimension. How much bigger is an eternal line? And how much bigger is the 3D world? And how much bigger is all time? So what is fifth dimension? Well, maybe what the ancients refer to fifth dimension is what we would call dark matter. And what the ancients refer to sixth dimension, we would call dark energy. And science says that the world we know, matter and everything, it's only 3%.
Mm.
So who knows? Maybe that, I hate to use the word junk,
Yeah.
unknown DNA, that
Mhm.
section, maybe it correlates to another dimension that we don't understand. Maybe it correlates to other energy we don't understand. And
Mhm.
I just paralleled it to dimensions because the percentages are similar.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that would make a lot more sense. But this and you know, even that notion is crumbling among scientists. Yeah, with this garbage undertone.
Yes,
Yeah.
it should.
So, but
Hey,
that
God
is
makes trash? Question mark, question mark. I don't
yeah,
think so.
exactly. Yeah, but you know, a lot of scientists don't think there is a God or a creative force or
Well,
however.
then nature makes trash? I
Mhm.
don't know about that.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So, And others also say that it is not only your the DNA that makes you human. Yeah, there is much more to it. So another thing, so that we come to our subject, DNA activation. What I can observe is, and what is logical to me, is that everything that we have in material, physical, has a counterpart in the energetic world. What am I talking about? For instance, there is a company that produces black goggles, huge goggles. You put them on, and then it's pitch black. There is not one shred of light coming in. And what people do is they learn seeing without their eyes. And they are actually playing ping pong. They are playing tennis with these
Wow.
goggles, wearing it. They go, I have seen multiple videos of that. They go into supermarkets. Yeah, and somebody says why they are wearing those goggles. Catch me this brand and bring that to me. And they do. They do. They tell you, you know, with cards, they said, yeah, okay, this is this card, that card, and they can not see with their eyes. So what they say is there is a moment before that, before your eyes translate it.
Mm-hmm.
And that is actually what makes you see. And by wearing those goggles and by practicing it, they get very good at it. And they actually say, yeah, well, now it doesn't matter to me if I can see it with my eyes or if I'm wearing the goggles. So in that sense, I'm pretty sure that everything that we see in the material world has a counterpart in the energetic world. Wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. Like this cup here has interference patterns. So it reflects air on the outside, and the air mingles with the actual content of the cup. And then within the ceramic, there's again interference patterns. Science has all kinds of studies about different shapes. In fact, I have a book, Home of Power, and you can see what science proves that certain shapes are very beneficial for you. So it's the energetic underlying blueprint, and they're not able to measure the subtle energy that they talk about in antiquity. They are able to measure its effect on the body. For example, on my site, I have a lot of stuff on biogeometry, but Ibrahim Karim, he's an Egyptian, got into radiathesiology. It's a very ancient form of dowsing. So ancient that some of the dowsing tools, when you look at the pharaohs, some of the things, and they hold their dowsing rods, but they're not the dowsing rods that are used today. Like today, a dowsing rod is almost like an L shape that swings, and it swings when you go across water or there's a subtle energy current. But theirs would, so our dowsing rods measure whether there is or is not a subtle energy current, such as water under the ground. Their dowsing rods would tell you the diameter, the width. They're going to tell you about subcomponents. And some of the subcomponents are very healthy for humanity, and some of them are not. So like negative energy, maybe ants and bugs and scorpions feed on, whereas positive energy, dogs and cats and humans feed on. And so many scientists have studied with official scientific study the effect on crops, animals, humans, diseases, and curing different things based on what shapes, colors, and materials are around you. So I say that's exactly what you're talking about in terms of the energetic blueprint. And one other thing, just going to add, I'm probably going to butcher this name, but there's some Russians, Pijar, I guess that's Peter. Oh gosh, begins with a J. I can't even pronounce it, but there was a group of Russians.
Gariaev.
Yes.
I've read about him. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that. And they have been able to talk using verbs. And so within your voice is your emotions, your physicality, your health, because I have, maybe you can talk about that later, but I've just added a new program where I analyze your voice and all the frequencies within and balance them with music. But they're analyzing the voice and giving instructions, and they reported changing salamander eggs to frog eggs. So they were altering your DNA with vibration and frequency, giving some type of credence to affirmations and hypnosis too, as being very powerful altering techniques. And they also confirm that junk DNA is not junk.
Yeah. And that is something that is penetrating the scientific community as well, more and more. As I said, I'm very unhappy with this term. And they should have left it at non-coding
Yes.
DNA. Yeah, that would have been better. It's as far as they understand it, a correct description without this,
Judgment.
It's junk.
Yeah.
So because you just mentioned Peter Gariaev, I guess. Gariaev or Gariaev. I'm not quite sure how that is correctly pronounced. 2014, there was a little bit of a hype, allegedly. Scientists from WIT, not MIT, Wyoming IT, had worked together with Bob Jones University. And they allegedly found that in this so-called junk DNA, that it cannot be distinguished. What they found, they looked at longer sequences. It cannot be distinguished from the Aramaic language.
Oh, that's beautiful, because I do a lot in the ancient languages of light. So when you read antiquity, it's ancient China, the Hinduism, the ancient Egyptian language. They profess that their languages are not symbolic. So the idea that I've read about in antiquity is like if you get underneath a drum head and you put sand on top and you say om om om, you're going to create this shape that we parallel with om. So in that instance, om, the sound om, and the shape is not a symbol, it is om in sound. So their whole idea with these ancient languages of light is that everything in matter does have a frequency matrix or subtle energy pattern. All subtle energy then would have frequency, and that you can transpose, like somatics or Misora Moto. You can take the shape and the item, and they're one and the same. Just my imagination here. I'm thinking that you read about some of these very evolved beings, and there's no veracity in this, but early evolved beings who perhaps are a little bit more clairvoyant and clairaudient than we are. They talk about them in antiquity as the gods. And they say that they would create with the voice, and that's what all Bibles say. In the beginning was the word, sound. And you can go through about a dozen of them. The Indians say Spider Woman sang the world into existence and so forth. Even the Egyptians, ptah, sang the world into existence. So they're using words for creation. And I'm thinking, if just me wondering, if you and I and everybody on this radio show didn't have to open our mouths, if I could hear your thoughts and you could hear mine, the thoughts become so much deeper, richer, and fuller, because I have psychic skills. So at times I do read people's thoughts and I get their thoughts and a whole lot more. It's like the difference between a text message and a personal heart-to-heart, one-on-one. You get a lot more in person. Well, when the words, they're like a text message, and particularly, I think after the languages of light, as we delved deeper into duality, our symbolic languages protected us. You know, so we say sticks and stones will break your bones, but words will never hurt you. Well, words will hurt you. They can indeed hurt you very, very much, not just emotionally and symbolically, but with this new musical astrology and looking at the frequencies in your body, they can hurt you. So by going to a symbolic language, when we slip into duality and we start sharing hatred or other hurtful intent and motions, they're dumbed down because the item and its symbolic word aren't quite the same. So, you know, we lose some of that punch. And then back to the other comment that I was making about maybe these earlier evolved beings that had more clairaudience and clairvoyance. If you didn't, I mean, why text when you can talk in person? You would talk in person. So why, if they were clairaudient, clairvoyant, why would you communicate in person with your words? You wouldn't. So then what was the voice for? It's a tool. It's like a jackhammer. It's kind of like, it's not a fine tuner. You know, it's kind of like, ouch, it's taking pain and negativity out. It's functional. It's sound, it's a tool. It affects our bodies, it affects each other. Information's carried on it. So like, if I care about you, that comes on my voice. Now watch me think ill of you. Sorry. Yeah, now see the difference? You hear it?
Yeah, exactly. And so going back to that, sorry, to that alleged find, problem is it appears to be a hoax.
Oh, bummer.
The website that promoted it. So far, I couldn't find the original website anymore. It appears to be gone, and there are also some other things. Some people say, well, WIT would never work with biblical scholars. And well, in general, yeah, that's not their habit that they do that. And that what was the name of this university? Bob Jones. Yeah, Bob Jones University does not have a faculty of applied biblical science, and that is another red flag. And yeah,
I've never heard of that.
yeah, but and since that article came out, we haven't heard anything else about that. So some people argue, yeah, well, if there had been something, then we would have heard more about it. But it is also possible that they tossed it. Other people say, yeah, okay, the website was a hoax, but the science in it is correct. And they even say, it's not only the Bible that you have encoded in your DNA, it's the Quran, it's the Roman history, the Greek history, the German history, the Japanese history, and anything you can think of. What do you make of that statement?
Well, I have in antiquity read people who have suggested that, how to put this, the different ancient languages of light, again, the antiquity that I read differentiates between extinct languages and today's symbolic ones. So the ancient languages of light were described as codings from different planetary beings. So this, one comes from the Pleiades, one comes from Arcturus, and they're, maybe think of them as geometric patterns. And so they would have these different ancient languages of light. And it's kind of like when you see beautiful drawings and there's one drawing and then another, and they all kind of fit together and they all make like maybe a flower life drawing at the end or some type of beautiful overlay when they all fit together. So I think it was J.R. or J.K. Hertag who wrote the books of Enoch. And he talked about the different languages, and he gave them even directional energy. So I remember the ancient Hebrew, for example, was like a connecting force, whereas the ancient Egyptian might have been vertical. And, so he talked about learning lessons. So within the frequency pattern of a language, it tunes your body because you speak it and you spray it on one another when you speak. So the da 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 of maybe the French creates a little different personality than that from the Russians. And think of like even people near water tend to have a lot of vowels, like oh yeah, I mean the Hawaiian
Yeah.
language, it's so different. And the idea is that the actual language, which is again reflective of your DNA, and that Peter, the guy we keep butchering his name, you at least tried.
Gariaev, yeah.
Yes. I mean, he was saying that your DNA is organized like syntax and grammar. That was another one of his findings. So, so they're saying that just like the ancients said, they said that the ancient languages were like building blocks of our world if you're to manifest. And so Hertag comes in and he talks about the different languages as giving us different lessons. So if you're born into a Russian genealogy, you're going to have a little bit more of a harsh type of learning and lessons and challenging. But, no less challenging is that of the fluent. That has different positive and negatives. So the ancient people talk about DNA in language, in my opinion, and they talk about it as like a blueprint for us to grow on. And then I'd also say that they also come in and they talk, most of the languages, they talk about these ancient languages as like manifesting as building blocks. So in the ancient Hebrew, they have the names of God, and they would believe that these sounds, their vowels, consonants, and pitch pattern would reflect all of the attributes of God, or all of the permutations is a word they would use, or all the aspects. So like, God's kind, God's merciful, God's this, God's that, or an evolved person is all these different emotional attributes. And so they would say that, so you'll find like the Jewish disciples will recite over and over again every combination of the sounds of their language. And it's not just the Jewish people. It's the Chinese, it's the Hindu, it's the Sanskrit, it's all over the globe. They're equating the names of God with the basic building blocks in your DNA and across the board. And so it's the names of God, and also the two other sound number patterns. Oh, and I have a CD on the names of God, in which I say the names of God along with their pitches. But getting back to that, another like sound pattern that the ancient peoples deemed to be like DNA, kind of like protoplasm of creation or building blocks, would be the tree of life. Now, the tree of life, again, we associate with the Jewish tradition, but its origins at least go to Egypt. So I'm suspecting Moses, he's a Pharaoh's son. got access to all their cool information. He leaves with the idea of the tree of life, but it's Egyptian in its inception and maybe earlier still. And the idea is you have these 10 Sephiroth, and it's like if you take light through a prism and it went into 10 different colors. It's 10 attributes of God. I also have them in sound. And the reason why is because they say this is one of these passive language of DNA, one of these overlays of tuning and harmony for evolution. I have them in sound and I have them in their pitches because it's an ancient way of achieving advancement and evolution. And then I also have them in the Druid tradition, because all the traditions did this. So the runes that you see throughout Europe, it's the same thing. It's like these are so ancient. We're most likely misdating them and don't know how ancient they are. But these, in my mind, the way I put things together, these are when people don't have to communicate with their mouth, but they're using their mouth as a tool. So these languages and how you pronounce them, those are the building blocks to create in matter. I also have them in sound, the runes in sound, for the same reason. It's another path to God. And then my last thing here, my next little collection of sounds, which I just got out 2 days ago. It's called Echoes of God. And it's a 71-minute collection of music that's very beautiful. But I got all excited by reading the work of Dean Hammer, and he's a geneticist. And his book was, I think, 2004, the God Code, something like that. And in essence, being just a pure scientist, he was able to quantify what he considered spiritual. So like not religious, spiritual. So someone who felt one with all, someone who would never litter because they truly get that if you hurt that nature, you hurt yourself, that we're all one. The kind of person that would never hurt you because they're not capable of it. And then also he quantified things like focus, like can you meditate? Do you have psychic skills? Do you have these extra sensory gifts? So he quantifies spirituality and finds that spiritual giants have a very robust gene called VMAT2 now, and then he dubs it the God gene. Well, VMAT2 has a protein, an activator, and I got another frequency, another code for it. But anyway, so like I have the genetic code and nutrients. And they're all sound codes, and they were graciously given to me by Sherry Edwards, soundhealthoptions.com. And she analyzes frequencies in the body and looks at nuclear structure and weights and so forth, and translates that into frequencies. So the music is encoded with the God gene, with the just absorbing, resonating with, growing, massaging. And we haven't even talked about DNA dreams yet, but the whole idea of these sounds is that you have these sounds in your body, perhaps in your junk DNA, who knows? Yeah. And you have these sounds. And so when someone gives you these revered ancient sound patterns or scientific VMA2, and I also have scientific DNA sounds. So once you get these, they resonate in your body, and your body then absorbs more of that energy, becoming more healthy, vibrant. And in the case of the Echoes of God music, vitalizing your God gene by listening to pretty music.
Yeah. So now going back to the subject of DNA activation, in general, are we talking about the counterpart or the physical DNA when we talk about DNA activation?
Well, That's a really good question. And let me say that I have studied maybe a dozen people who do DNA activations. Most of them do some type of channeling, and some entity works through them, and boom, your DNA is activated. So, and they do it differently. And I would suspect that they're working on the other. What I've presented in my DNA dreams, again, another about 70 minutes of music, is more scientific, more working on the physical realm. Not judging the other method, just adding
I
this
am
one.
judging, because channeled information to me is, or it's like a red cloth. Yeah.
Yeah,
So because you never really know what you're dealing with.
you
Yeah,
don't.
anybody can say, "Hey, I'm Michael, I'm Gabriel, I'm so and so and so and so, and I'm the most wonderful thing in the world, and now I'm going to tell you what's going." And in point of fact, you're dealing with, yeah, a deceiver. To me, channeled information for the most part is part of the false white light matrix.
Okay.
Yeah,
But
that
my,
is
yeah.
how I perceive it. I'm not saying, again, I'm not saying I'm 100% correct. Yeah. Can it be that I'm that it's wrong? Yeah, it can be. I won't rule it out, but I have banged my head too many times when I try to overrule my intuition. Yeah, with whatever method was available. So,
Well, I
yeah.
think at best, channeling is done through a person.
Mm,
And the idea that someone speaks through you, they speak through you. It's like they get into the car of you. And because I have channeled before and had some incredible information come through and have helped me think of great ideas to facilitate my work in my book. So it's a great creative source.
mm,
However, am I perfect channel? Certainly not, because sometimes I can get in the way. And so in my music, particularly in the DNA, I went the science route. And what I did there was, again, you can measure, you can detect, you can calculate every frequency in your body. And so I can look at every frequency in your voice and then give you some music to listen to and then measure again and see the difference. I can measure every frequency in you, watch you eat an orange, measure again, see the frequencies plus the orange. So you can look at the frequencies in the body. And so in my DNA music, I have the frequencies associated with the nucleotides. So that's adenine, thymine, I'm going to butcher the names again, cyanine and guanine.
mm.
And so it's like a computer code, like we're a computer code. And I think the adenine and the thymine are usually a pair. So when I use like DNA tuning forks, I always use these two, and the guanine and the cyanine, because that's how they work in your body. I'm just copying the wisdom of nature. And if you think about our computers at the basic moment, they're a 1 and a 0, like a Morse code of on and off is the very, very basic communication. And then it gets complicated from there. So our DNA has 4 nucleotides. So think how complex that can be. And all of the coding has those 4 blocks. So I'm tuning those 4 blocks, junk, non-junk, whatever. And as we age, everything can change frequency. And another way to think about it is as we age, there's like little telomeres. I always imagine them like end caps on the DNA. Well, they wear down over time. So then our DNA kind of wears down. And I think a retuning's beautiful. So in
Mm.
my music, I have the nucleotides plus phosphate, because the beautiful pictures you see made out of phosphate frequency. And then the shapes have frequency. So I have the sound patterns of the DNA. And I also have RNA. So there you have it, DNA Dreams. It's probably a 70-some minute tune-up, beautiful music, but it's getting in there to all the counterparts. And therefore, I'm sidestepping what's junk DNA and what's not. I'm just tuning up the components.
Okay. Yeah, I totally get it, why you are doing that. So in other words, you are serving both levels. Yeah. So, but here's my, I'm a type of person, I always need to understand the mechanics of things.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, and this is hard because there's a lot not understood.
yeah.
Yes.
And when we speak of DNA activation in the sense that we are talking about the physical, so now we know that our cells, our DNA, everything is constantly dividing, replicating, and so there is no standstill. And we are talking about millions of cells in our body. So what if I miss one cell, yeah, that didn't get activated, or maybe even 10 or 100 out of those millions? Wouldn't that mean that those not activated cells then replicate? And so I never reach the point where, I can say everything is active. You know what I'm aiming at?
See, I think the problem is when I look at people who do DNA activations, for the most part, it's channeled. And to me, when I go through those programs, I think everybody's definition of what is activated varies a little bit. So when you say DNA is activated, that's like a big fuzzy topic for me. It doesn't mean it's good or bad or right or wrong. It just means I don't fully understand what they're talking about. And so I think in your body, whenever a code gets out of tune, you get sick. And you can see that. You can see it, like this body process should have these frequencies and it doesn't. Therefore, you have that disease. And I think being tuned and getting all these different tunings is critical and much more important. And sound is accurate. It's cheap. It's free. Very powerful. You can listen again and again. You don't pay every time you listen. So it's a really valuable tool. And I don't know where I was going on that. So I do believe that when you're sick and one cell doesn't get it, that's called disease. And I have total faith that you can tune, because if you've got, like, if you're what's out of tune, let's say it's a 432 number. If I play a 432 around you and you have that not working in your body someplace, then the tuning fork will not sound. So I'm striking it, and normally it sounds, but because I don't have it in my body, it has nothing to resonate back and forth with, no sound. So I can take and I do have DNA forks are on my side, but up and down your body and see where the holes are for adenine, guanine, thiamine, and cyanine. And I pare them down. You can see exactly where, like you will, some of those cells aren't resonating. And if you do it for long enough, you absorb the frequency, and then all of a sudden your aura radiates the completion of DNA. So you can see it and feel it, almost touch it when you're holding those tuning forks. It's the same with the CD. They both work. And the thing about sound, in my opinion, is that, if I'm playing that 432 near me, all my sound within a certain, maybe say 10 feet, everything in my body gets access to that resonance. So I'm not, how I'm missing things, I'm not really sure. I think you get them all through sound.
Yeah. And I think that is what I exactly meant when I said defluffing the subject of DNA activation. Because, many times the way it is presented, it's like the Holy Grail. Yeah. If you haven't achieved that, yeah, you are not even a fully developed human being, yeah. So it's as if my whatever type of salvation is connected to that. If I do not have that, that would be my ticket to yeah. It sounds like almost godhood, yeah, because you get all these wonderful gifts, like you become a psychic, clear how do you say that? Clear
Their
audience,
audience.
a clear audience, and what have you, yes, like a superhuman. I do think we have a superhuman in us, yeah, but the general presentation of DNA activation has too many, yeah, fluffy rainbows, unicorns, and you know, so it doesn't really gel with me. But on the other hand, as I said, I'm fully convinced that there is a superhuman in all of us.
Well, I've really enjoyed taking so much of my life and studying antiquity because I believe, and it's certainly not factual, I believe that some of the very early gods were just a more evolved species. That's
Mm-hmm.
all. And they had some wisdom, like they were talking about atoms in 500 years before Christ. And every now and then they know things that, like, how in the world did they know things? How in the world do they construct those pyramids? And we still haven't figured that out. There was some type of advanced technology, understanding, learning, and they had to teach to humanity that wasn't too evolved. So they dumb it down, and they dumb it down in stories. And what are magic spells? Well, to some extent, they are herbs, they're smells, they're different frequencies and magic words. They're different sound patterns that create an energetic influence. And so they dumb down stuff to teach us. And now that we've gotten more sophisticated, we say it's all superstitious and it's like junk DNA. It's like you throw it all out. Well, I like to take a look at that because I think those people knew some really cool stuff. And I've enjoyed looking at their wisdom. In my mind, it's wisdom, with a clear eye, with trying not to judge it, and spending a lot of time studying science and sound, because I think that's crucial, and even having an eye to psychic abilities, because I have them, so that I understand when they're developing them. And I've just had a really fun time because they had more developed, in my opinion, right brains. We have more developed left brains. So their technology is that subtle energy. It's stuff that we haven't even looked at yet. And I think these techniques, these sounds, they're a lot of their ideas. If you just kind of try to see to the kernel of what they're talking about and recall that they're dumbing it down, and then bingo, we have some really cool understanding processes advancement.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
enjoy it anyway.
Yeah. Circling back to Peter Gariaev, he said the genetic code in junk DNA follows uniform grammar and usage rules almost identical to those of human language. And I guess that is where this article then later on came
Yes.
in and said they found that it is not distinguishable from Aramaic. Allegedly, they even found entire sentences. One sentence that was identified read, at the dawn of the first day, God created heaven and earth. Something like
I
that.
missed
So
that
now, be it as it may, yeah, the idea is fascinating. And but for instance, well, at least me, I couldn't find the, usually you have a published paper, you can read it somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I couldn't find it. If somebody in the audience finds the original paper, not the article about it, but the original paper, please mention it in the comment section, because I was not able to do that. But anyhow, I thought maybe this junk DNA, maybe it's like an interface between, yeah, the physical DNA and the counterpart.
Perhaps.
Yeah.
Perhaps.
When 98% is deemed non-coding and therefore a little bit useless, that means we don't know squat about
That's
DNA,
exactly right.
really.
That's exactly right. I'd agree with that.
Yeah. So I mean, yes, we have CRISPR, and when, yeah, they can do a lot of things with it, but actually I don't think they really understand what they are doing there and what might be the ramifications of that in the long run.
And it's interesting that that study that you're looking for echoes what the ancient people said. So they might have gotten their idea for their for looking for that information from antiquity, because almost every ancient language will tie their names of God or some subset of sounds as they don't use the word DNA, but maybe a coding, like a
Yeah.
God coding. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So another thing, since you are here, we Sherry Edwards, I had her as a guest as well, and so we know that sounds can heal. Yeah, that has already been established. And I was wondering how that really works. I mean, how do you find? I assume that every disease has a certain frequency.
Mm-hmm.
So first of all, how do you find that frequency?
Mm-hmm.
Let's leave it there, and then the second part of the question, I will ask that later
Okay.
on.
All right. Well, first of all, there's many ways. There's not just one. There's these SCIO devices that do it by looking at your aura. A friend of mine does it with galvanic skin pressure. You go in and you hold a metal bar, and he's measuring your sweat. Again, science confirming your body's holographic. So, there's an example where somebody's looking like a body component and looking for all your frequencies, whereas another's doing your aura. Sherry does your voice. So your voice is, according to her research, and it makes all the sense in the world, a reflection of everything in your body. So your voice is different than mine. And it was Joseph Fourier, maybe the 50s. He, just like light goes through a rainbow and breaks into component colors, he was able to show sound is all together. We hear it together, where it's really all these components, just like colored light and white light. And so he has this process. It's called a fast Fourier transform. So you can take a sound, such as a voice, and break it into all the components. And Sherry has that made into, because she was born with special hearing, she hears perhaps frequency of lower volume than you and like our cells talking. It's just too low for us. It's out of our volume range. And so she looks into the voice and can spread it out into like 10,000 frequencies and graph it. And if you are healthy, you're like this part of the graph is let's say number of hits, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and this part of the graph is say A, B, C, D. Okay, so if you're healthy, you're going to have this like little wave, or frequencies are going to be accurate. Most people, and that's called a personality. I've never seen this. So we all have a personality. You're good at this, not so good at that. I'm good at this, I'm healthier here, not so good at that. And so we have like different tunings. And over time, because we're in duality, each frequency is positive and negative. You know, maybe we use it for a gift, but too much of it over a long period of time can also cause problems, like health problems, like you get off balance. Health is balance. So when you look at these graphs, that's the way Sherry does it. And that's also the way the guy with the measuring your sweat and the aura people, they can look at all the frequencies and they can see where you're out of whack. So you see, here's health. Okay, you got a frequency here and here. Okay, both of them are a problem. One's too abundant, one's not enough. What you do here is you simply sound this tone and keep sounding it until it goes into the healthy range. This one up here, you would sound its reciprocal. So 1/2 times 2 cancels each other out. So if it's 2, you would listen to 1/2. And then over time, it'll go into the healthy range. So that's one way of doing it. And in that way, you can look at diseases and isolate them. Like here's your graph, and then you have the spike. And this might be, because it correlates pretty much to the periodic chart of elements. And so you can look at how the sound and the periodic chart of elements match. So you can see, okay, I'm really having a problem because I'm not absorbing any vitamin A. Of course, you can absorb it by sound. And maybe that can be correlated to a certain disease, you know, or something like that. So that would be one way. Now, Royal Rife did it also, and he did it in I think in the 40s. And he's a doctor in the USA that was using magnification with crystals, and his competitors, other doctors weren't. So he was able to see greater. The second thing he did is he did not take blood out in a little tube and send it to the lab. He looked at it live. And if you've ever done that live, you can see all your little blood cells moving around, and you can see their shapes and so forth. But when you see on one of those graphs like a cell, you'll see it's like a jellyfish. It breathes, and that's its frequency. And you can pitch that, Royal Rife did, because how far it moves in what time period will give you its frequency. So Royal Rife's in there, particularly looking at cancer. And so he would look at the live cancer cell, he would measure it, come up with its frequency, give you the reciprocal, and bam. Now he writes he was curing 800 out of 800 cases of cancer, some in their last stages in the 40s, crying out loud. Now, the AMA has accused him of all kinds of ill doing. You know, I'm not there, I don't know. But you know, he also would put all the cancer industry out of business. So there's,
sure,
you know, a little something there too. And so you can purchase a Royal Rife, and in that way, they've already cataloged every disease. And then when you get into one of these little machines, you would listen to the reciprocal. And a disease is alive. You know, it's not a dead thing. So it can morph and change, particularly if we've got a medicine for it. So sometimes like when I'm doing sound healing for something, because I did free sound healing for the Ebola, and also we worked on the coronavirus, but I will take like a reciprocal frequency and kind of band, like, oh, so as it's trying to worm its way around. And another thing that Sherry found, she found certain protein sounds kind of like unveil. Like she found that some of your diseases will cover themselves in proteins so that your body's immune system can't find them. And I believe it was square waves. She used square waves and was able to rip off the protein coating. and so that your natural body would take care of it. And so there's a royal rife way of dealing with diseases. But Sherry takes it a step further, because what you're doing to get rid of a disease is to get rid of something unwanted. But what if you're not digesting your food properly and you really need a certain nutrient? Well, that's simply a matter of identifying what nutrient you need or what's out of balance. And you listen to it. And when you listen to it, you'll find your body returning to health, because it absorbs what it needs, and it doesn't have to go through the digestion process. The other thing that Sherry does that I think is so cool is that she will go through the body and map processes. So like she'll get on PubMed, a website, and she'll say, okay, here's a formula for digestion, metabolic processing. Your body's got all kinds of formulas. When she adds her frequencies in these chemical formulas, and I'm making something up because I don't know one, like, A plus 2H plus C plus O2 plus H2O, whatever. When she puts in the sounds for the chemical formula, it works. So as soon as you get one of those components out of tune, you're not going to digest your food properly. So as we age and this and that goes a little south or north, particularly that digestion formula. And a lot of our aging issues, in my opinion, are that we're not getting the nutrients that we need because our digestion process is getting a little rusty. So she will go in there and plug in the holes, and she can do it quite accurately. But the other thing that I love about that is that when she looks at the mathematics, it's the same as a harmonic chain. Well, what's a harmonic chain? Okay, I'm making a sound and there's an echo. Hear the echo? Goes up in pitch a little bit. That will go up in pitch according to mathematical formula. And they knew about this in antiquity, in China, in Egypt, in India, in ancient Greece. They all knew about it. So that would have a specific harmonic. So we know about it from like a violin plays an E and a trumpet plays an E. Same note, same pitch. The violin sounds higher. And here's another way to look at harmonics. It's like an after ripple. We think of sound as one thing. It's not. It's all these different little things coming together, and they kind of like ripple. Like think if you're on the top of a bridge and you're dropping a rock and you see all these circles coming out. That's a harmonic. And so like E, A, now listen carefully. It's the same pitch. It doesn't sound it. E, A, it's the same pitch, but A sounds lower. Because A, so like harmonics go up in pitch. So A is going to throw, just the spin of the sound in my mouth is going to throw more energy into the lower harmonics. It sounds lower in pitch. E throws more energy into the higher harmonics. So what Sherry's found is that various harmonic chains, and they can vary. The mathematics doesn't vary, but how much you have in each harmonic can vary. Then she finds, let me see, where am I going on that? Okay, so you find that she finds that your body has many harmonic chains. So therefore, and this is in antiquity too, particularly the Greeks, they would heal, let's say, a violin versus a trumpet versus a lyre versus that. So they're all going to have a little bit different harmonic emphasis. And Sherry's finding that in your body, you have different harmonic emphasis. And again, veracity, some to these ancient old ways. So harmonic patterns mirror something like digestion. And this is the biggie right here. We almost never hear harmonics anymore. Our technology, we've dropped them. So what do I mean by that? Think of a camera, and in the camera, it's digital. So you have a certain number of pixels. The more money you pay, hopefully the more pixels you get, the closer it looks to reality, but it never reaches reality. To get reality, you have to have that old film camera, and then you get every frequency. Well, if you take that whole idea into sound, sound is live. Harmonic patterns you receive vibrationally live. You receive them in an old LP, and you receive them in a cassette. You do not receive them in a CD. You do not receive them on a TV. You do not receive them on the radio. You do not receive them, on your devices. And that's where we're listening. So, so I have software made, and I will put in the harmonics to create those changes, because I think that's one of the most important things for health, is to get that live harmonic chain. And that's why people use tuning forks, and that's why people use sound healing tools, because it's live. That's why people like singing bowls. It's the harmonic. It like feeds you.
Yeah.
And it does.
But maybe that was one of the reasons why they digitized music, every type of music.
Maybe. I don't know.
Maybe they had a feeling that, well, they are getting
Weakens
closer
us,
now
for sure.
with sound healing and so on. Yeah. So, in other words, if I understand correctly, the frequency of the different diseases, they have already been cataloged. So, and then what you do, you use the opposite frequency, and that should bring it back into balance, correct?
Correct.
Okay, good. Yeah, it's always good to, and sometimes you think you understood.
Yeah. And then you get another question that you have to consider is duration. So, like, let's say you have way too much the frequency of 2 cycles per second. So you listen to a half. Okay. So you listen to a half. Ideally, you want to stop right here. You don't want to keep listening to a half till you're out of balance the other way. And you can do that with all these kind of devices, but there's a really natural way to do it. Like, for example, I keep talking about this voice analysis that I'm doing. And again, thanks to Sherry Edwards, who has developed the software, but I'll look at all the frequencies in your voice. And then you'll listen to all the places that you're missing, and all your balancing frequencies, to take your whole voice into like a harmonic sweet spot. And like when I did mine and I listened to it, oh my gosh, I loved my music. And I really, that would build my ego. Oh yeah, I love my music. But the truth of the matter was, it wasn't the music, wasn't my compositions. It was that I needed those frequencies. And because I was able to pinpoint exactly what I needed, I could see so clearly that my body's releasing endorphins to say, yeah, more. And so when you're feeling a deficit, your body has consciousness, it's smart, it's a computer, something. And it says, yeah, more. And as soon as you start to get to balance, then the song is like, it's okay. And as you start getting out of balance with it, you'll dislike it. So how beautiful is that? You can just start to pay attention, which is actually hard for some people, but still, if you have access to all your feelings, if you're not numb, what do you like? There it's at.
Yeah.
Listen to what you like, and then when you get tired of it, stop.
Yeah. So in other words, the Rife did groundbreaking work to catalog the frequencies of diseases. Okay. Yeah.
And they have morphed a little, so I don't know if they're I really don't know much about that system. Maybe it might be very well that that's updated. I don't know.
Yeah. So with our DNA activation, is it fair to say that at the end of the day, let's say something is and be it the literal DNA or the energetic counterpart, I'm not going to argue about this. Is it fair to say essentially we are plugged into a different morphogenetic field at that point, and that is why we might even have different perceptions and
Gosh, I can see that going several ways. One is that we all have individual tunings, and each tuning is going to relate to an emotion. So the fact that I have this personality versus that, I'm going to run more of different emotions and maybe different emotional fields and energetic fields. So one idea is that my complete sound pattern might resonate with other fields, might with other dimensions, might and you might resonate maybe better in this one or that one or something, so we might have a little bit because of from what's within. And whether or not the DNA creates another field of energy. And of course, the question to me is, how many fields of energy are there? Can I tune into a different one and you turn it into another? See, we really don't know those things. The ancients would say dimensions, different dimensions, but that's not necessarily what science has to say. And so whether the actual DNA creates a morphogenic field, or maybe it's like a radio antenna, and it resonates with this or that or this or that, I guess no one really knows the answer to that. But we do know that we're a radio and we receive. The DNA's a radio, it receives, and there's a whole lot we can't see. Like if you think about dark matter and dark energy in amongst us, and that's 90%, 97%, I think, or 96. There's an awful lot we don't know.
Oh yeah, and the deeper you dive into subjects like that, as I said, we know squat about
Yes.
DNA.
Yes. That's why my DNA CD is very basic. We know that.
Yeah. And so as I said, I could not find the original article with that the research paper that suggested, okay, here this is what we have found. But on the other hand, I wouldn't still rule it out. And actually, I would love to see scientists doing an interdisciplinary forum and really look at that, have a good look at the 98% that we still do not understand. So Jill, do you want to say anything that is important, something that we haven't touched on?
Well, maybe just that I guess my big thing is the power of sound and music. And to me, sound is emotions, sound is thoughts, sound is this cup as much as it is me, and the air and the environment. And, health is harmony. When you look at your tones within, health is balance. Health is a good, happy feeling, which equates to tones and frequencies. So let the music play you and tune up and listen to that sweet song, become that sweet song. Know that when you listen to the sweet song, you're becoming it. So listen away.
Okay, thank you. So that was it, guys. Night Flight for today with the lovely Jill Mattson. Her website is jillmattson.com. And Wings of Light?
Yeah, Jill's Wings of Light. And that's the big one. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of free stuff. So I have free music downloads to for the exact nutrients against the virus, or any virus for that matter, nutrients to boost your immune system. And I also have free sound package for anti-inflammation, which people have attributed to people after they get the vaccine and after they have COVID. They both have problems with inflammation. And then some of the samples of my other sound healing works. So
Okay.
enjoy the freebies too.
Yeah. So thanks for that. And yeah, I hope this was useful for the audience, and we see you all next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you.